Hi everyone, Elaine Beck here, and of course we are on It's Not About Us, my show that speaks to the wonderful things that are happening in the country. I know there's all kinds of bad things, but God is going to get us through all of it, and that's why it's not about us and it's about Him. So we just love you all. We're so grateful that you're here, and we're on CPAC now, and you know you can also reach out to us at elainebeck.com and see everything that we do. And that's enough about me. Let's talk about my guest. My guest is Saurabh Sharma. You know, the first time I said your name, I sort of bumbled over it.
You did just fine.
But the nice thing is, you know, after you get to know him, it's real easy. His name is real easy because it's his personality. It really is. So it's a lot of fun to be with somebody that we think so highly of. Saurabh has an organization called American Moment. And, you know, it makes you stop and wonder, well, now what could that be? Is that being in the moment, Saurabh?
It's paying attention to the moment we find ourselves in this country and making sure that we have the right answers to the big problems facing our time.
Boy, and that's a mouthful. Because we know we're facing a lot of bad stuff, a lot of evil, and a lot of distractions and things that shouldn't be happening, and that type of thing. But we're seeing a lot of good come too. We're seeing people stand up that haven't stood up for years. We're seeing people, you know, in organizations coming together and realizing that the only answer is God. And give the people just a quick snapshot of how you learned about that, Saurabh.
Well, you know, I grew up in this country, having moved from India when I was very, very young, and saw a little bit of everywhere. Moved around a lot growing up, everywhere from Lexington and Albuquerque to big cities like Seattle, Los Angeles, and Atlanta, Dallas and Austin,
right.
where I spent the last few years in Texas, and even DC. And what became clear to me over the course of all of that time traveling around the country, being a young, impressionable person, is that the most driven, capable, kind, and generous people I met were God-fearing Christians.
Amen.
And so that makes you wonder when you're a young person who doesn't believe in very much or is trying to figure out what they believe about the world.
Right,
and
right.
I had the good sense given by God to listen and pay attention to that when I was at the right age to hear it, and that's what motivates so much of what I do today is recognizing that to be the case and recognizing that God-fearing Christians have an enormously important role to play in the public square. In
right.
fact, probably the primary role.
Absolutely.
And that there are all sorts of reasons to be tempted to inaction. Mm-hmm. Everything about the world we live in tempts people to inaction. But this is a moment that requires deeply courageous people, and the best and really only source of courage, we talked about this over breakfast,
right.
is God.
This is true. What I love about it too is that so many young people, Saurabh, and you and I both know this is true, they don't have that grounding, and they're not paying attention to realize that God does speak to them. They're not looking for the means to do the right thing. So what do you feel we can do to help them stay more focused in the right direction? What would you suggest?
It's a very trying time in our country right now. A lot of young people feel like the American dream is slipping away.
Right.
And there are justifiable reasons for that. You know, the basic math of owning a home, having a family, all of those things that would lead people down a path where they consider these deeper questions, those are breaking down.
Yes.
So people always ask, is politics downstream from culture? Is culture downstream from politics? And it's such a frustrating question to me because the answer is yes. It's all of the above.
Right.
And it's why the small part of what I do, being involved in politics and public life, I see as feeding back into these big questions about the country, because if we don't get those basic necessities of what young people need in order to live healthy and prosperous lives right, they're only going to be driven further into the arms of despair. That's not to say that, that there isn't a place for God at the beginning of that question. Obviously there is, but it's an all of the above approach that we need to have. So one of the biggest things that I think we need to be paying attention to as people who are engaged in public life is what are the challenges that young people are actually facing today, challenges that might be different than
Right.
the challenges people faced 40 years ago. It was a very different country, and this is the theme of so many of the conversations you and I have, is that we both see the deep problems facing this country, and you have the wisdom to see that the problems that the country is facing are a little bit different than they may have been 40 years ago, and I have the wisdom to hear about your witness and everything that you've learned watching the country change. So it's a rambling set of thoughts, but that's how I think about it.
Well, all I can say is my answer to this is that I want everybody to realize that what I want to do and what all the seniors, realistically, the good seniors that are God-fearing seniors, you know what we want to do? We want to take all of you and just hug you. We do. We want to hug you and share with you about our country and what it was like to live in a free country and to feel safe every day, to get out and walk to school and never have to even think twice about somebody approaching you with anything evil, to be able to do things like, I remember on one occasion, the principal, and it wasn't for a bad reason, it was for a good reason, called me to his office, and he was the elementary principal, and I was a high school student, and he called me in the office and he told me to shut the door. Nobody would we didn't hesitate. There was no fear that he would ever try anything bad. Mm-hmm. This was all okay. And there was trust and love, and there was, sure, we had issues. You know, some people got caught smoking in the bathroom. Come on. And the guys, you know, when they got in a fight, they used their fists, okay? You know, somebody could get a broken jaw or a broken nose. Somebody could end up with quite a few bruises. But, you know, they were all okay. They lived. There was not a gun involved. There was not a knife involved. There was not, you know, the kind of hate that is destructive and evil to the point where I don't care how much damage I cause you, which is what so many of them are about now. They just are so full of hate and anger that, you know, they just want to retaliate in some way, and there's no limit to that anger. And that's why I want to just hug them, Saurab. I just want to hug them and tell them, but God loves you, and I love you, and this is a great country, and there are wonderful things, and that, you know, lean on my shoulder, lean on me, ask me, talk to me, you know, hear about good versus evil. Go towards the light, not the dark, right?
Absolutely. And that's one of the biggest challenges we have today, is that sense of optimism and charity and generosity has been lost in American life. I think this is one of the big contrasts we see at the national stage in politics, is the difference between people who all they do is criticize versus people who have a positive vision for where we're going, because ultimately people are attracted to a positive vision, a substantive vision, a vision of how things can get better.
Right.
And that optimism has been lost, again, for good reasons. Bad things happen all the time, but leaders in public life have a responsibility to be that source of vision,
right.
And generosity and optimism that would encourage people to think beyond themselves about
right.
what could be.
Right. Well, you know, I love what Saurab does, because he reaches out to numerous. I mean, I can't imagine what the number is now. When I first met you, you had been at this for just not quite a year, and you had over 1,000 young people that you had already, you know, brought on board to learn about, you know, using their love of Christ, their Christian beliefs, to serve their country in a political way someday, to go out there and learn the ropes, so to speak, and learn to love this country in a way that a lot of us was taught, oh, stay away from it, it's evil, right? And now, so about where is your number now?
Several hundred higher than when we first met. And I guess we met right around now a year ago. And
yes.
So it's probably closer. I think at the time we met, it would have been around 800 or 900, and now it's about 1,300 to 1,400. So.
That's amazing. Yep. So 1,300 or 1,400 young people are dedicating right now their life to service for God and country. And they're in what age range, would you say?
We always say that at the founding of our organization, which was in 2021, 70% of our audience was 18 to 25-year-olds, and the upper bound of that increases by 1 year for every year we exist. So now it's about 70% of them are 18 to 27-year-olds. Next year will be 18 to 28-year-olds. So right in that working age, because the dirty secret that people don't realize is that DC is run by 20-somethings.
Right.
Over 65% of congressional staff in both the House and the Senate are under the age of 29.
Right, right. The difference is you are focusing on that group of people that are true Christians, that are seeking God's way of answering the problems in our country, that are going to be that person again who is willing to hug you, willing to support you, willing to sit and listen and hold your hand and cry with you if necessary, and rejoice in the victories with you. And what a difference, and a way to look at what it will be 5, 10, 15 years from now, the amount of young people that will be serving in the right capacity. Because as I shared with you the first time we talked, my belief is that, you know, as young people and all people, we need to understand serving God, part of that in the Bible is serving your country, being in control in the sense that you love your country enough to be in the front line, making the decisions about what is right and wrong in our country, not just in our own personal lives. So I think that's wonderful, Saurabh, and I know everybody else out there really can appreciate the work that you're doing. And I've been blessed to be part of it for the last year, and I intend to stay in that realm as long as God leaves me here on this earth. And I hope that other people will see the value in what they're doing and look up American Moment and reach out and see what they can do to help, and to understand that it's really ultimately all that we do is about God, that we are here to serve Him. That's why He put us on earth. And when His first commandment is to love Him with all our heart and soul and might, it's always the second thing that I think that He wants us to hear the most. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And that's what we're trying to do, is it not?
Absolutely. It is only through deeply convicted, courageous people, motivated by God, both love and fear,
right,
in the public square, that we will take back this country. And
Amen.
So that's the fight that you're involved in, that's the fight that I'm involved in, and that's the fight that we need thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people involved in.
Right, and I love those numbers because, you know, we pointed out that you've only been doing this for what was your date you started?
February 24th, 2021.
21. It's 23. Now just look at what He's done so far. Look at what you could do in the next year and a half, or year and 8 months, or whatever that amounts to. Look what you could have accomplished. Look where your heart can take you, whether it's with someone else like Saurabh. And so reach out to him if you have a heart for doing what he does, and he will reach out to you and vet you. That's not what we do.
Absolutely.
And he will look at your heart and talk to you about your future and decide if it's a good fit. And if it's not, help you find what is. And that's so amazing. And you know, so if you're feeling alone today or stressed or not knowing what to do, reach out to people who love God in whatever capacity it is, and ask yourself, is this the way for me to go? And once you hear the word yes, you know, you will follow your heart. So thank you, Saurabh, for being with me again. This is the second time we've had the pleasure of being able to do an interview together and speak to the country about, you know, how God has asked us to be together and do the right thing and go towards the light. So thank you for being here, and thank all of you for coming to our show and listening in. I hope that this was a moment, an American moment that you will remember. And just remember, I'm praying for all of you, so pray for all of us. God bless you.